What's going on? What's going on, people? We are back. It is I, Mr. Ezel, and my wife,
Yelsa.
And you're listening to YNTB podcast, your non-typical black podcast. Now, we told you guys on the last show that this was going to be, we were going to be talking about various different topics that typically black people don't seem to talk about, or maybe even people don't talk about. It's just, we're different, okay?
Yes.
So today's topic has to do with
being different in the black community.
Being different in the black community. And if you don't mind, I want to go ahead and, because I actually wrote down like quick bullet points just to give, I'll tell you what, let's start off this way. So I pulled up a article. This is on nmahc.si.edu. This is a blog. It's popular and pervasive stereotypes of African Americans. So this is like a historically accurate. It's not even a depiction. This is actually the stereotypes in general from years ago. Stereotypes today of somewhat advanced past this, but just to give you an idea. So you guys watching YouTube can't see this, but I'm just gonna say Uncle Tom is I guess I would say kind of derogatory in the black community. Mm-hmm. We look at it as like a sellout type of figure. But in actuality, if I'm not mistaken, the actual Uncle Tom was not a sellout. He was actually helping black people. Yeah. But I'll leave that up to you guys to research. Sapphire. Now, I didn't know about this one. The Sapphire caricature from the 1800s through the mid-1900s popularly portrayed black women, excuse me, I can't talk today, women as sassy, emasculating, and domineering. Unlike the mammy figure, this trope depicted African American women as aggressive, loud, and angry, in direct violation of social norms. The Sapphire stereotype earned its name on the CBS television show Amos and Andy, in association with the character Sapphire Stevens. Okay, so we all know that that's a stereotype.
Yeah. The strong stereotype.
Yeah, aggressive, loud, angry.
That's what they automatically associate with the black woman.
Yes. Not gonna get into that right now. Let's keep going. We also have watermelon. Black folks love watermelon. I particularly, I love watermelon. I'm sorry.
I actually don't like watermelon that much.
That's right. My wife.
I really don't.
And the sad part is, inside the African American community, we even joke about this. Like, she would lose her black card privileges.
I don't like it.
Because she doesn't like watermelon.
I mean,
next? Sweet potato pie?
It's an okay taste to me. Like, people love it. They want it in the summertime and stuff. They're like, oh, come get this watermelon. And I'm like, I'd rather have grapes or strawberries or something other than watermelon.
Yeah. But it's okay, because guess what? It's a stereotype. Not all black people enjoy watermelon. That is true. Okay. Mandingo. The
Mandingo warrior.
Buck. Okay, the black buck. Mandingo. So if I'm not mistaken, the Mandingo warrior, back in slavery times, the master would pit his strongest slave against another slave that was supposedly the strongest of another master's, and I guess they would bet to see who would win. And it was a fight to the death.
Yeah, fight to death. It was.
This was depicted in what's the movie, Django?
Yeah, that the actual movie Mandingo. If you had ever seen it before, my first time seeing it was when I was in college. Our teacher showed it to us.
Okay, I haven't. Yeah, I haven't seen that movie, I guess. But it's the idea. I think the Mandingo was also forced. It says here, emancipation brought with it fears that these men would exact sexual revenge against white men through their daughters, as depicted in the film Birth of a Nation. The reinforcement of the stereotype of the Mandingo as animalistic and brutish, gave legal authority to white mobs and militias who tortured and killed black men for the safety of the public. Okay, that's not saying what I was thinking it was going to say, but I think also
you were also thinking about what they consider it
breed with.
Yeah,
they were forced
to
to
make
breed.
the strongest.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So from that, there's this idea that black men are superior sexually in the bed and promiscuous, as well as the females. The women are promiscuous. Let's see what else is in this article. I think that is it for it. So these are just some stereotypes.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get too deep
Just
on that.
some of the stereotypes.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yes.
But those are some stereotypes, right? So we got, just to reiterate, Uncle Tom, the sellout; Sapphire, the sassy, emasculating, and domineering black woman; Watermelon, black folks love watermelon; Mandingo, sexually superior. Now, those are a few things that we can look at where black people are considered. If you don't fit into those categories, what are you doing? Are you really black?
Yeah. And it's sad that we use those stereotypes, which were used to negatively portray us. We use those stereotypes as a guideline to say who's really black and who's not. And I think that's crazy.
Exactly. So before we started, I decided to write down some of the things. Well, they're actually, you know what? There's a little bit more. I'm sorry. That's the baseline stereotypes of black people, right? It goes a little bit further now. So there's also, I was looking at this other article. This is from OZY.com. True Stories. This is the name of the article is, and I quote, "But you're so smart, you can't be black." I was reading a little bit of this article, and basically, this woman, she was going to school, and she attended a primarily white university in Evanston, Illinois, and she was the only African American female film major that year. I think what she says is that, she was studying AP English or something, but she wound up being a tutor, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I'm not meshing the two stories together, but she wound up being a tutor, and she would show up to Asian and I guess white families' homes to tutor their kids. And she would hear it all the time. "You're so smart. Are you at least half Japanese? Are you, so being intelligent, we're not really known for being intelligent, but we are known for being physically superior in the sense of athletics, sports, those type of things.
Oh, and entertainment too.
And entertainment, being able to dance. That is another thing that was listed in this. She's nerdy, so they were saying, "Hey, you should be able to, you can dance, right?" And she's like, "No, So, okay, sorry for the long intro. So here's the thing. So here's my notes. Okay, these are ways that I in particular stood out from the crowd. Okay, number one, I didn't sag my pants. Born in the 80s, growing up in the 90s. For whatever reason, kids want to sag their pants. I personally feel like it was to be cool, or it started out as to be accepted, because nobody actually peer pressures you into sagging your pants. It's more like I want to be seen as hip, I want to be seen as trendy, so I'm going to sag my pants like everybody else is. Thank God I had a father in my life, because he beat that out of me, okay? I tried it for a minute, didn't last long, and so yeah, that's my point of view on it. Just gonna continue here, okay? Number two, I made good grades, and I was kind of a teacher's pet. I was on the A and B honor roll, all the way up until I was off of it sometimes. But there was an incident that happened in my 11th grade year, and then everything went downhill from there. But that's a whole nother podcast for a whole nother day. But typically I made good grades, so I was not liked for that, I suppose. I grew up vegetarian in the South before the healthy movement, okay? being a vegetarian growing
yeah.
up in Alabama in the South, not eating chitlins, not eating deer meat, possum, coon, whatever. That was wild because this is the 90s, mind you. Okay. And it's a lot of peer pressure. It's funny because you get a lot of jokes and stares. You don't want no meat. What you gonna eat? There's collard greens, there's black eyed peas, there's macaroni and cheese, there's coleslaw, there's all these different things to eat. But anyway, number 4, loved anime at a time it wasn't socially acceptable. Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, I can relate.
If somebody found out you were watching it. Now, for me, I can say, at least, and that was a weird thing, for me at the time in the early 2000s, in high school, that was actually all right. All the guys, it was the girls who were like, but the guys, we watched Dragon Ball Z, so I was okay with that. But it wasn't socially acceptable in general. It just happened to be at my particular school. Okay. 5, I wasn't good at basketball. I wasn't particularly great at it. I can't dribble. I can't shake you now. But I didn't have a good shot. Okay. And it's funny how that, not being able to play sports, would translate to having respect outside of the gym floor. Just as a man, just as a being. If you could play good sports, for instance, there was a guy that was super smart. He didn't get picked on like I did because he can ball. And everybody wanted to pick him as on their team so they could win. So he didn't get picked on because he was good at sports. So anyway, 6, I wasn't a womanizer. I was a one-woman relationship type of guy. Everybody else was picking, being a pimp, P-I-M-P, that's what they wanted to be. I did not fall into that. There was peer pressure towards that, but I just refused to be that type of person. It just was not me. And then number 7, I excelled in theater arts. So that's music, dance, theater, acting. That was where I took off. That was my lane. And because of that, I was in an area, I grew up in a country. So I grew up in an area where sports was idolized and theater arts was kind of like, like the macho man is a guy that goes out, he can fix his car, get dirt on him, and go shovel next thing he goes in the woods, chop a tree down, and now he's playing basketball and football. That was not exactly me. So theater arts was looked at, especially back then, like participating in ballet, having to wear tights, those things. I was doing it. And so I got teased for that. So those things, collection of those things, is what led to me being kind of like a cast out of the cool club in high school. So how about you?
I share a couple of those things on the list, like anime. Like, I used to love anime back then. I started watching it in the mid 90s, and I'd started off watching the regular stuff that some women watched back then, like Sailor Moon. And then in the late 90s, it was Pokemon, Tenchi Muyo, and a few other things. I also watched Dragon Ball Z from time to time. So I did watch that. I watched Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. And I remember telling people that, when I was in elementary school, if I would walk in or overhear some of the guys talking about it, I'd be like, oh yeah, I watched that too last night. And they would just give me the most coldest stare.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Some of the guys would treat me bad because of that. They'd be like, oh, you didn't watch it. Oh, look at her trying so hard and stuff like that. It was like, no, I actually watched it.
Well, I've told you this before, that if you were in my school, that would have been instant girlfriend material right there.
Look, but see, I grew up as an artist. So for me, seeing cartoons and stuff, it was like I always wanted to draw that type of style and everything else. So seeing anime, which was totally different from American cartoons, I was just very fascinated by it, very fascinated by its style and the storyline, because the storyline is much different. But being into that and then going into middle school was the worst. This literal experience happened to me. I was walking through the hallway with my friend, and I was just gushing about Sailor Moon and what just happened in the most recent episode. And I remember a popular guy walked by and he looked at me. He said, ugh. Like, he was just so disgusted by me. This is a black guy, okay?
Oh, wow.
These were black people. It's like the girls that were popular were not into that type of thing, you know? So that was kind of seen as nerdy back then if you were a girl and you were into that. So that was one of the stereotypes that I had to deal with, similar to you. But yours was different, you know?
Yeah.
Now,
'Cause I'm a guy.
other stereotypes that I dealt with was my speaking voice, of course. That's something I can't control. I mean, nobody in my family necessarily sounds like me, but it's not something that I just like, oh, I heard someone's voice and I just emulated it. It's just, this is how I sound, you know? And I went to a school that was multicultural, you know, like I had teachers of different races. I didn't have just all, you know, certain groups of teachers. Mm-hmm. So I just naturally sound like this. But because of that, I have been judged. And in the past, I didn't really see it like that because I grew up in Maryland, which is not necessarily the South, not necessarily the North, even though Maryland's technically speaking the South, it's not really, you know.
I don't know how.
But because of that, because of where I grew up, I didn't really have to deal with people like being upset with me because of the way that I speak. I really didn't deal with it until I went to college in the South. And then that's when I noticed people treating me a certain way just because of the way that I spoke. And I remember a friend of mine actually saying this. She had the same issue and she was like, why is that an issue? Why is it that only speaking intelligently is reserved for people outside of the black race? And I was like, that's a pretty good point, you know? I was like, I'm gonna take that for next time someone says that to me. So that was one of the stereotypes I had to deal with. Another stereotype I had to deal with was long hair. And the idea that black women, yes, long hair, the idea that black women did not grow long hair.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
So growing up, I still have long hair, even though you can't really tell in its natural form. When it's straightened out, you can tell. But my hair has always been mid-back length or below mid-back length, between mid-back length to waist length. That's always been my hair length. So when I was in elementary school, I remember I got my hair straightened for the first time. And people were asking me if it was my real hair and everything. And I remember I even got teased and pushed around the bathroom just because of my hair.
Like really?
Yes. And it continued.
I'm sorry.
By black women. Well, young black girls at the time. They were black girls.
Yeah.
So I dealt with that, and then growing up constantly hearing, is that your hair? Is that really your hair? Like, or people want to feel through your hair. Like, it's this, even though it's not like a stereotype like the other stereotypes, like, oh, he doesn't sag his pants, he's not black enough. It's still bad because it's like we internalize this thought pattern that, oh, because you're black, you can't grow long hair. And I like that's breaking down now, but that was just something that I dealt with back then. So it was the anime thing, and then pair that with the way that I spoke, and then the fact that I also happened to play video games at the time. I was into, you know, the usual stuff, Crash Bandicoot, Street Fighters at the time. I got treated, you know, differently towards black community. Oh, and another thing, I liked pop music. I was heavily into pop music to the extent.
Backstreet Boys, NSYNC,
Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, everybody that came along with the whole bubblegum pop thing.
Let me interject just this. I secretly listened to everything I just said. I didn't buy the album, but I would record the radio, put a little tape cassette, record it. I would secretly like these groups and like the music they were putting out, but I never feared. Like the Dragon Ball Z was one thing, but I knew that if they found out I was listening to Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, I wouldn't hear the end of it. It would be, I didn't even tell my best friend at the time that I was listening to this music. Like, that's how much of a hardcore secret it was. I could not be caught with this music in my, CD player at the time. Could not, or tape cassette for that matter.
See, I didn't start necessarily hiding that part of myself until I went to high school and college, because when I was in elementary
That's the time
school,
I'm talking about.
yeah, when I was in elementary school and middle school, I had one black friend that was just like me, that was very different, and then I had a Vietnamese friend. It's so weird because I had two Vietnamese friends. You know, one was in elementary school, one was in middle school. But then when I got to high school, that's when I was starting to try to assimilate, because I also liked boys at the time and I wanted to attract people within the black community. Like, I liked the black guys, and you know, they were attracted to certain types of girls. Like, they listened to certain type of music, they had certain type of earrings, certain type of outfits that reflected the hip-hop community or what they saw on TV that was portrayed, how they portrayed black people on TV.
Right.
So because of that, I carried that into even college. And I went to a historically black college, which is crazy, but I felt like if I didn't show that I liked certain types of music, that I would be outcasted or not make any friends. So in the beginning part of college, I very much so did not tell a lot of people that I was into pop music or that I could draw or that I was into anime and stuff. A lot of people did not know that. A lot of people.
Wow. I mean, So I can say for me how it affected me. Not for a lot of those things, especially considering the theater arts, the things that I was really, really good at. I do them today: the singing, the dancing, the acting. I had a little short-lived music career when I was younger. That's another topic. But I began to hold back. This is in high school. I began to hold back academically. I didn't want to make a straight A. Let me make a B instead. Let me make a high C. I began to purposely hold back my gifts because I didn't want to make anybody else feel uncomfortable, even though it was their insecurities, right?
You were censoring yourself.
I was censoring myself to make everybody else around me feel comfortable. Instead, I should have pushed harder. And I think I did that until I left and moved to Atlanta when I was 23. And I put the age out there so you know, because I was, quite some time out of high school, but these things still affected me. Being in that area, when I moved and went to Atlanta, I felt like I could spread my wings because there were other people that were just as talented, just as smart, just like, I didn't feel like I was at the top of the food chain anymore from that perspective. And I don't want to make this sound like I think I'm some Picasso or something. I don't want to sound braggadocious here. But I'm just putting it in this term so you can understand exactly the mindset and exactly what we're talking about here. Imagine being number one in your class or the top five. Let's say the top five. And then you go from the top 5 to like top 30, because there's that much competition academically, creatively. It was a huge jump. And while I was, I also did those things because I was dealing with being bullied. I was dealing with being harassed daily. So that has a mental effect, because, and that's what I want to get around to, is how did this affect you mentally? Because when this is why I'm an advocate I'm against bullying, let's put it like that. But I also see the benefits of the bullying, right? There's benefits to it. It made me tougher. Okay. It made me be able to take some, like we're doing social media, we get a comment on a video and somebody says something rude or stupid or just whatever, and I'm just like, oh, that's funny. I can laugh at it because I can understand it's not that serious, or if it is, I know how to handle the situation because I come from a background of being bullied for years, almost my entire high school experience, from 9th grade to 12th grade, to 11th grade, going to 12th, was just incident after incident after incident. So for me, the cons were I began to hold back. I began not to push as hard as I knew I could have. And I felt like an outsider. Like humans, it's important for us to feel or have community.
Yeah.
To feel a part of something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
To be a part of a unit, a squad, or community or whatnot. So that was another reason why I realized, I'm by myself. There is nobody else that's achieving the things I'm doing. And I've got to pull back so that I can fit in. Everybody's looking at me like, what are you doing? So community is important, but like I said, when I left and went to Atlanta, I found my community. So that was kind of the cons, but the pros, I would say, once again, and I hope I'm not talking in circles here, but is the pros are you get a tougher skin. You're able to deal with people's comments. You don't think it's the end of the world when you get criticized on something. And that's important to be able to have that in this day and age where we live in the day and age of cancel culture, where someone's ready to get rid of you just because you said something, just because you did something, just because, especially when they go back 10, 15 years and they're looking at it, that's something you did when you were 21. And now you're 35 or 40 or whatever it is, and they're like, you said this when you were 10. It's like, come on, man. Really? This person has grown and has so many more layers to them now.
So much time has passed. So much
what's
experience.
The pros and cons? What's the pros and cons, Yulsa? Yes.
I thought you were going to ask me about how I felt about it mentally.
Well, yes. Mentally, and then the pros and cons. Like, how did that work for you? With being different and being black and not fitting in with the I don't know if it's called a subculture or what it is, but this ideology of if you're not dressing like this, talking like this, eating these foods, associating yourself with this, liking this type of music, you're not black. That's what this is all about. If you don't do this, do that, you're not black. If you don't speak like this, if you don't talk with someone, hey, what's up, bro? Hey, cuz, hey, what to do? If you don't talk like that, you're not black. If you can't dance, if you can't break dance, pop and lock, do the hottest movements of the time, you're not black. How did that affect you? And then tell me the pros and cons.
It actually did the opposite for me than it did for you. For me, well, there's always two different people. There's the person who has the issue and overcomes it, and then the person that has the issue and continues to fall down or fall to victim mentality. I would say I was the second person, fell to victim mentality. I became a people pleaser as a result. So for a large portion of my life, I was people pleasing. I was kind of doing what people like to call code switching, but they say, they code switch when they change up their vernacular around certain groups of people. I was doing that, but in a way of personality, you know what I mean? So, and that was just so I could be more palatable to black people, because I wanted to make more friends even outside of college, because it was like I knew that I was different. It was going to be hard for me to attract more black people to me. But that shouldn't have been in my psyche, and it took a while to break that part of me, break that side down, right. And for me to fully be okay with saying, hey, yeah, I do like pop music. Yes, I did love anime. Yes, I do love to do these things that are seen as something that most black people don't do, like skiing. I went skiing. I mean, now you see black people doing it, but it's mostly the rich people doing it up in Aspen. But back then I went skiing because I wanted to, you know what I mean? It had nothing to do with race. It had to do with what I personally wanted to do. Black people.
Well, I just want to say that some black people, because black people, not to get into this, but because blacks on a macro level have been, were held back financially, our grandparents and whatnot. Go do your research if you don't know what I'm talking about. black people today are not. I don't know how much it costs to go skiing. Okay,
it doesn't. It doesn't
don't know.
cost that much.
Okay,
well, it depends
so
on where you go.
A luxury to all black people.
Because they think you have to go to Aspen, and you don't have to go there to go skiing. There's little ski resorts here and there throughout the country that are not that expensive. That cost maybe as much to even do the whole bunny slopes as it does to go ice skating.
I mean, what are we talking here? $100?
No, I think it's less than that.
50?
I don't know. I don't know how much it costs now, but back then it did not cost much.
Me being originally from Alabama, growing up there, I have no idea because it rarely snowed in Alabama. Like 10 years ago by, it didn't snow. So I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I did it up in the mountains of Virginia. So, but yeah, that kind of that threw me totally off topic. What were we?
You were just explaining how the pros and cons of not fitting into the black culture, as far as how we talk, dancing, those things.
Yes.
You were telling me that it actually propelled you to be a people pleaser.
Yes, it did. And people have to realize that black people need to realize this. Black people, we've been taught that black people only fit into these stereotypes. I don't know why we're falling for these stereotypes. It makes no sense to me why we still uphold these negative stereotypes. Yes, there are some black people out there like that, but we're so much more multifaceted than that. There are several different types of black people. It's not just one type of black person. We don't just have hood black people. We don't just have the ghetto black girl that's yelling at everybody or whatever. That's what they would call it. Some people would call it ghetto, sapphire, hood, whatever term you want to dress up the little situation with. There's more than one type of black person out there, and I just want black people to realize that. But sometimes I think that even saying it isn't enough. I feel like they need to see it. That's the issue. We're not seeing that.
Yeah. That's why it's important, as a married man, African American man, black man, excuse me. I think it's important for us to show, loving relationship between husband and wife in public. Nothing obscene, but it might be a simple holding hands or I love you or whatever it is, because and it's not showing out. It's somebody may see that and that may change their interpretation of what they thought black marriage looked like, right? Because with divorce rates being 50%, period, I think it's over 50% or 50% or something like that. We need to see a good relationship, period. But especially in the black community,
because the stereotype is
that's
single mom, dad leaves.
That's a whole nother podcast. We're definitely going to jump into that. But just sticking to the subject matter of this one, just not fitting in and wanting to fit in with our people. And it extends. We're just talking about those things. We can go on and on.
We can.
And on and on about how we don't fit in. From thinking about and here's the thing. I don't want us to walk away from the podcast without acknowledging that the reason that we can even afford the luxury of thinking this way or being different is because of our parents.
Yes,
because of
very
the
much so.
Groundwork that they laid down, right? I come from my background is a family of mentors, teachers. Father's a teacher, mother's a teacher, a counselor now. Grandmother was in the teaching system, uncles, etc. And because of that, these are people with masters, PhDs. They were able to give me a lifestyle where I could afford to read books growing up, go to the library, read. You know, everybody, if my mother couldn't help me with my homework, I had my grandmother step in. I guess you could say I was blessed. And so part of the reason why we have to deal with the bullying and things that we did is because other blacks did not come from the same background. Yeah. And instead of reaching out and befriending us and maybe coming into our world a little bit, we were teased by those same blacks, and bullied. And when you look deeper and look into their lives and you realize, oh man, you really feel sorry for them, because you realize, man, they really had it rough. They really had it rough. As a kid, how do you deal with that? How do you express your hurt? You know, sometimes they say it was hurt people hurt people. So I just look at it from a different perspective now. I really dealt with that for a long time, into adulthood. But I mean, and if we want to pull the layers off of that, why are they coming from broken families? Why are they coming from households that financially don't have this? It goes. I hate to be that guy. What's that show on Netflix? It's because of slavery. Black people don't like the show.
It goes into
But Tyler Perry was
so many different things: slavery, Jim Crow. You know.
Oh, Black AF. That's what it was. Black AF, the show.
Yes.
Every episode was, this is because of slavery. This is because of so forth and so on. It's kind of true. But yeah. This has been an interesting topic. I think we could definitely continue to pull back layers on this. But we are just starting on this YouTube channel, guys, and we want to make it.
I would like to say another thing.
Oh, go ahead.
Also, I've reiterated this in the other video, I think, as well. But representation matters. So I think that if it's shown more in the media,
yes,
then that would affect how Black people view themselves as well. But that's just one of the ways. That's just one.
Absolutely, I totally agree. So I want you guys to do me a favor, do us a favor, like this video. You know, make sure you hit that like button and like this video, because it definitely helps us to grow. If you're listening to this podcast, share the podcast with a friend, somebody you think would find it interesting. Maybe you were talking about this topic with your buddies the other day. But right now, this is kind of our format. We're just openly talking, discussing these topics. Do we have a solution? You know, if we talked about the solutions, it would take us another 5 hours to discuss that. So this is just a platform that we're building so that we can, you know, we're both talented people. If you don't know, I'm a filmmaker. My wife is a talented dope animator, and you know, we're always talking amongst ourselves while we're doing these creative projects, and we have something to say. We definitely have viewpoints on things that you just don't hear from Black people on certain issues. So we want to bring that to the forefront with our channel. So definitely subscribe if this is your first time checking this out. Like I said, like the button, and leave us some of your comments down below. What do you guys think about this topic? Okay, and we'll see you on the next podcast.